The most significant date of all of 2025 is March 29th. Why? Well, we have a solar eclipse on this date, which is always a big portal, transformational energy, setting the stage for the next 6 months. And we also have Saturn moving into Pisces, which doesn't happen until every 30 years. And this is setting the stage for a 2.5-year cycle of Saturn in Pisces. Got on top of all that, on the 29th, we have 7 placements in Pisces. So very strong Pisces energy, specifically in Uttarabhadrapada. This is a very spiritual side of Pisces. It's a very transformational, cleansing, clearing kind of energy. And in this episode, I'll share what it means for all of us, regardless of your chart. There's this collective energy that we're all going through right now, on top of Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde and everything else going on this year. It's a very transformational year. And I'll talk about how you can work with this personally. I'm Jeremy Devins. This is the Quietmind Astrology Podcast. If you're new here, get your own birth chart at quietmindastrology.com. And you can see where Pisces is in your chart. Wherever the number 12 is on the chart you get on my site, that's Pisces in that house. And that house is activated especially for you on this time around the 29th. Specifically that date, but also around that time. So it's really like the 2 weeks before, 2 weeks after, a lot of these effects are coming into your experience. So you may have been feeling this need to let go of some things, transform some things, release some things. Pisces has a lot to do with letting go. Big emotional releases are very possible at this time. Set a new sort of vision and direction for your life is very possible at this time. And we'll go into more details in a moment. And if you want to go more into working in your purpose and sharing your gifts with the world, that's what April is going to be about. March is about clearing the space, cleansing, releasing the past. April now is a good time to start moving forward into this new path. That's what I'll be sharing at the free live workshop called Thrive Online. quietmindastrology.com/thrive online, or the link in the show notes is where you can RSVP for this free live workshop. And if you've attended one of my live workshops before, you know I like to make these really interactive and really cover a lot of ground in a short time. So it's not like a podcast where you're just listening, but we get to interact, ask you questions. I encourage you to journal and look at some things and help you uncover your gifts and bring out your gifts more in service to the world. In the 4 aims of life, this is all about purpose and wealth is what this workshop is about. Last month, we did the workshop all about relationships, right? So the 4 aims of life: health, wealth, relationships, and purpose. This one in April is going to be all about purpose and wealth. So it's one of the 4 major aims of life. quietmindastrology.com/thrive online is where you can learn about this if you want to be sharing your gifts online with the world, which I'm very fortunate to get to do here. I love this work. It's something I've been doing a long time, a big calling and passion of mine to share this. And those of you who have very strong Pisces energy, you may have some sort of intuitive gifts as well. And for all of us right now, these sort of intuitive spiritual gifts are heightened during this time, the end of March, beginning of April, with all of this stuff happening. So let's first look at the eclipse. What is the eclipse about? It's when the sun is blocked by the moon. So the light of the sun is momentarily blocked by the moon because of our relationship from here on Earth. So we are getting a sort of reset of the sun, and it's in Pisces and Uttarabhadrapada. So a reset in what our dreams are, what our vision is, what our intuition is. It's an opportunity to reevaluate this part of ourselves. Good time for doing dream journaling, dream reflections. Every time we go through an eclipse, it's like you're going through a portal into a new timeline of reality. And quantum physics talks about this kind of stuff a lot. So it's like you can imagine that we're actually going into a choice point around late March to now move into a new 6-month phase from the eclipse. And it's ideal that on the exact date of the eclipse that you don't make any major decisions. Your thinking might not be clear on the day of the eclipse. And if you feel like you need to process things with somebody or go into a deep conversation, if you can avoid that, it's usually best. Sometimes it needs to come out, right? Eclipses tend to bring things up to the surface that need to be addressed, especially the last one, the full moon eclipse. Full moons bring stuff to the surface. So if you went through that a little messy, you needed to bring stuff up and address it, That's okay. Be kind with yourself. But the new moon is like a blank slate, a reset where there's no light on the moon and it's actually blocking the sun. So all of the solar energy is lessened on the 29th. So our creativity, our power, our leadership ability is having a reset. It's not bad, it's not good, it's just a reset. So it's an opportunity to reset and relook at how you want to show up in those areas of your life, of like what you're creating, where you feel inspired, where you feel lit up, where your power derives from. Have you given your power to something else? This is something I've worked with a lot, and it's very easy to slip into for a lot of us. Of you give your power to your boss, and it's like, oh, I can't do anything this weekend because I got to work, right? So you've given your power to the boss and say that they are the ones in charge of your schedule. Or I don't want to upset somebody, so I'm not going to say this thing. So you've given your power of your emotional expression to that person. Now, there's no judgment on this. It's not like a problem to be fixed. It's something to just be aware of like where you feel disempowered, you've probably given your power to someone else or something else. And this is an opportunity with the eclipse to take your power back. So it's now, somebody might be upset if you share your emotions, but you're being authentic and you can't control someone else's reactions. And you can be kind and compassionate and not hurtful in your expression, but you can also be unblocked in your expression. So if you feel like there's something you want to express or share or connect or speak to somebody, you express yourself, but you're blocking it, you may have given your power away to that thing. And the eclipse is an opportunity to take your power back. Now, the eclipses are generally good days for things like laying low, getting body work, massage, rest, meditation, time in nature, time in solitude and quiet, reflection, prayers, ceremonies, these kind of things. Very beneficial on the eclipse and actually more potent on these days. But any sort of major decision in the material world is likely going to be not seeing clearly. Like if you're trying to sign a contract, put a new loan out, get a new loan on a house, commit to a marriage, propose to somebody, especially during Venus retrograde, any major relationship commitments, proceed with caution. Any major decisions about like what you want to do with your life that require like signing contracts or committing for the long term, I recommend don't do it on the 29th or on the date of any eclipse. You do it before or after is okay. The day before or after is fine. But the day of is when the actual eclipse happens for a brief time that the sun will be blocked. So our soul, our essence, our creativity, our vision, our leadership will be resetting. So in the same way, like if you're restarting your computer, while it's restarting, you can't do anything on the computer. You need to wait for it to restart. Right? So that's what the day of the eclipse is about. It's like you're restarting things, resetting things. And while that's happening, you can't do other stuff as well. You can try, test it out. Don't just take my word for it. If you really want to do something on that day, test it out, see how it goes for yourself. Everything I'm saying is just from experience and observation and case studies of thousands of charts. So that's what I've seen, is that if you do stuff on the eclipse that requires long-term commitment and clarity of thinking, that you're likely going to be missing something and have to redo it, especially because Mercury's retrograde and Venus is retrograde now. So proceed with caution with those kind of things. Now, also on the 29th, we have Saturn moving into Pisces. So this is the second of the three major events happening at this time, all in one day. And Saturn is a slow moving planet. It's the furthest one we can see with the naked eye, right? So we can see Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter. Then Saturn is the furthest one we can see with the naked eye. Then there's Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, which we need a telescope to see, or an astronomy app or something. So Saturn, being the furthest thing we can see, represents limits, boundaries. It has rings on it. And what do you do when you commit in a relationship? You put a ring on it, right? So there's this element of rings being in boundaries, containment, commitment, and Saturn represents these things. It's also things like the root chakra, which is like about boundaries and foundational needs, survival needs. Saturn teaches us about time. And you can think about like Father Time to represent Saturn as like a teacher who is kind of harsh in a way. It's like the lessons of Saturn have us grow and mature, and they're challenging and they're not easy, but they help us mature and grow, and they're necessary. And it's the kind of lessons that we might not like to get, but we need to get. It's not what we want to get, but it's what we need to get. And when it moves into Pisces now, it's this sense of lessons about boundaries, about what we really practically can dream about and create and manifest in our lives. So it is a good time from this new 2.5-year cycle, March 29th, 2.5 years of exploring, going beyond our perceived limitations, trying something new, going outside of your comfort zone, and expanding beyond what you think is possible. It's a slow, long transit, 2.5 years. We just finished 2.5 years of Saturn in Aquarius, which is a very good place for Saturn to be. And that has brought us, as it has through history, major technological breakthroughs, major developments in society. Things with AI and robotics and things like this have been a big part of that. And historically, it was like the World Wide Web when Saturn was in Aquarius. So you can think back to like the late 90s when Saturn moved into Pisces last time. And now it's coming here again. Like what kind of things were happening where society was growing in a lot of ways. You can look back at your own life. What were you doing around this time in the late 90s? That might be a theme coming back now. If you do a lot of personal growth work, looking back at the lessons of that time, because Saturn is teaching us a lot of life lessons and difficult, challenging lessons. So like what kind of lessons were you learning in your life about 30 years ago? What may be unresolved from that time? Potentially traumas, wounds, decisions, things that you started, things that you ended that needed attention, or that could need attention again to like review and go back over those things on a new level. You can think of like we're always spiraling up and out to new octaves of similar experiences. And Saturn in Pisces is showing us where we need more discipline and structure and boundaries in our lives, but also room for spirituality and boundlessness and going beyond structure and discipline. It's a very tricky energy, right? Where Saturn and Aquarius, which we just had, was a very harmonious energy. It's like Saturn's in its own sign. It's all about expanding and growing technology and unique creative ways. But now it's in Pisces. It's a little bit of a mixed energy. Pisces wants to be boundless. Saturn wants to have boundaries. So you may find yourself a little more confused, a little bit unsure of the future. There's more uncertainty and stability. And on a personal level, it's like, how do we adapt to all these new technological changes in the world? What does it mean for different industries, for your work, for your creativity? And this first part of it with Saturn and Pisces, it's going through Uttarabhadrapada, then it's going to meet up with all this Uttarabhadrapada energy that we're starting with. So there's a lot of potential for growth through spirituality, metaphysics, astrology, yoga, spiritual practices. This next 2.5 years is a great time for learning these kind of things. Any kind of spiritual work, going through retreats, going to foreign lands, learning about spiritual practices and things like this. If you don't have an altar in your home or a spiritual place in your home, or even just like a cushion to meditate on, or a place in nature where you connect with spirituality or spiritual energy or meditative energy, this is a very good time to have that and bring that into your life. There's a very big potential for cleansing karma. Like karma just means action and doing. So there's things that you've done and created and acted on in your life that have cause and effect. And if you have the cause of going to the gym 3 times a week, you're going to have the effect of a pretty fit body, most likely. Or if you have the cause of never going to the gym, you're going to have the effect of eventually losing muscle mass and becoming weaker and having all sorts of other issues. So karma is just cause and effect. So anyone talks about karmic things and karma coming around, it's not inherently bad. Most people use it as like a bad thing. But this energy through the Vajrapadas of Saturn is like really showing us our karma. Neutral, good or bad. It's like, okay, what have you done in your life and what results has that created? What cause have you put into action in your life, and what are the effects of that cause now? And if you're not liking the effects, then go back to addressing the cause. If you are liking the effects, then continue the cause, right? If you are getting good sleep and you're feeling good and well rested, then keep doing what you're doing around your sleep routines. If you're not getting good sleep and you're feeling groggy and tired and burned out, then maybe look at the root of that, of like your sleep habits, but maybe there's some lifestyle habits you want to change. So, great opportunity for reevaluating habits and routines in your life, especially those of you who happen to have Saturn and Pisces in your birth chart. You're born 30 or 60 or 90 years ago, you'll have this Saturn and Pisces in your birth chart. So you're having your Saturn return. So all of these things I'm saying about Saturn and Pisces are amplified even more for you. So just more attention on these issues. The key lesson through all this Saturn and Pisces transit for 2.5 years, starting on March 29th, is to learn where to let go and where to have firm boundaries. And that is a paradox in a lot of ways. It's not so simple. It's like, where is the line? And you may have to test this and fail and succeed and fail and succeed. And that's okay. Be kind, compassionate with yourself. In the same way, like with babies, we pretty much expect and can pretty reliably say most babies, healthy, normal babies with the sort of space to move around are going to learn how to walk eventually. And at the beginning, they're going to fall a lot. And when they're falling, we have compassion with them and we're kind and patient with them. This is like everything with Saturn. So just be kind and patient with yourself. If you're learning something and you're falling down, just like a baby learning to walk, it's okay. Like, just give yourself time, be kind and patient with yourself. Know that you will figure it out over time. And Saturn can be a bit harsh on itself and harsh on others at times, but with Pisces, it's like, trust the process, go with the flow a little bit, loosen up a little bit. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others, be compassionate, see the big picture, and know that over time, there's a lot of growth coming through this transit. And in 2.5 years from now, Saturn's going to reach Aries, where it's considered debilitated. And it's going to be a more challenging time in a lot of ways. And we'll get to that later on. That's coming 2.5 years. We got plenty of time for that. But on a personal level, it's good to start thinking about what your vision is, and especially with Saturn coming out of Aquarius, so there's this big impact on technology and AI and these kind of things. Like, where does that fit in your life? How are you going to adapt and evolve with this? There's a great potential that a lot of old jobs will be phased out and new jobs will be created using these new technologies. But we're going through what is sometimes called the fourth industrial revolution, where a lot of manual labor, a lot of even creative work and things like this will be start to be replaced with AI. And it's just part of the cycle of technology and the workforce, where things continue to evolve. So it's good to consider at this time, like, what do you envision your ideal life? If you could have it any way you want, what do you wake up and do in the morning? Where do you go? Where do you live? What kind of environment are you in? The accessibility of that is just growing more and more, and the barriers to that are decreasing more and more. And this is part of why I'm focusing on purpose and wealth in April and sharing about that a lot, is because if you have like something you want to share with the world, like your own gift, your own skill, your own thing online, and to work online and to live anywhere in the world, all of those resources are just growing very fast, more than ever. It's easier now more than ever. And especially through this transit, it's going to continue to get easier. But when Saturn in Aries comes in 2.5 years, the people who are doing this work now are going to be in a good place to have their own thing, to be in their own alignment, their own purpose. And the people who are just trying to hold on to the way that things used to be are going to be struggling the most. When 2.5 years, when Saturn reaches Aries, so 26, 27, like basically the end of 2028, early 2029, is where we're going to see anyone who's still holding on to, like, this is the way it's always been. I want to keep my security and stability in this old way of being and this old job and these old structures. Those people are going to struggle the most, because Saturn in Aries is not so kind to that kind of energy. It's a very strong friction to that kind of energy. So it's a time of letting go of those things that you can do now during Saturn and Pisces. Pisces is very favorable for letting go. Saturn in Aries is going to be a lot more friction to trying to let those things go. So only you know the answer to this, like what's out of alignment in your life. Where do you feel like you're not really being true to yourself, being authentic, being connected, that you can let go and create more space for what is aligned, authentic, and true for yourself? So, on top of all that, the third major transit on the 29th is there's 7 placements in Pisces. So, that means Sun, Moon, Mercury, Neptune, Venus, Rahu, and Saturn all in Pisces. Mostly those are in Uttarabhadrapada, except Rahu and Saturn, which are in Purva So it's a very spiritual energy. In the 7 placements in Pisces doesn't last super long because the moon will move on in 2 days, and then the sun in about 2 weeks, Mercury in about 2 weeks, and then Venus in a few more weeks. So all this stuff will move on pretty quickly from Pisces, but it's basically the first 2 weeks of April. There's a very strong Pisces energy, and it's carrying over through the Saturn part I just talked about. All this means around the end of March, beginning April, a good time for spiritual practices, time in water, time in nature, time doing spiritual practices like meditation, yoga, kundalini, mantra, breath work, time in letting go of things that no longer serve you. With all the Mercury retrograde, it's like clearing out the files, the closet, the clutter. No contract signings if you can during Mercury retrograde. If you must, then just take it slow, double check. But if you can avoid that, then avoid it until April 7th. April 7th is also the day I'll be doing the live workshop, quietmindastrology.com/thrive online. If you want to join and focus on your purpose and wealth over the month of April and into the next few months. But this date, again, March 29th, for 2 weeks, all the spiritual stuff is amplified. And the need to let go and create space is also a big theme here. So only you know the answer to that. And it's not easy. Letting go is not easy. If it were easy, this podcast would be very short. And I could just say, just let go of the stuff that's not working. But why do we hold on to things that we struggle to let go of? Why do we hold on if we know it's not aligned? Maybe we think it's possible. So we want to explore every possibility, like, okay, how could I continue to make this thing work? And that's worth exploring. And it's important for you to assess and sort of come to the conclusion of what is not workable for you. What is something that you can't continue to negotiate with, that you must now let it go. And only you have the answer for that. So if you're having a difficult time letting something go, it's not really something that you do. It's more something you don't do. Surrender is not something you do. It's something you don't do. So you're just releasing. You're not holding on. You're not struggling. You're not bargaining. You're not denying. You're not fighting. You're not avoiding or numbing out. You're just addressing what is true. And that's a big compass for me, is just what is true. What's true in my body? What's true in my heart? And the mind third, right? So body, mind, heart, or body, heart, then mind, right? So I would say the mind can be very, very active and give you a lot of excuses and keep things going forever. And this is why people can end up in situations like maybe they're trying to divorce, but they go to relationship counseling for years and years. It's just all their mind talking to the mind of the other person with their hearts closed. If they just open their hearts and really spoke from there, they might actually get somewhere, and they might actually get connected, or they might realize this just isn't aligned. So the mind can keep you holding onto things for a long time. And really, like, the Saturn cycle comes once every 30 years. So do you want to be holding onto the same things 30 years from now and then have to try to let it go? That's potential with the Saturn transit. So it might be the whole 2.5 years you're working on letting these things go. I don't know what they are. It could be health related, relationship, money, career, finance. Only you know what that is. The house that Pisces is in helps understand this as well. So look at that. But it's a reckoning. It's a time to really reassess and really look within for yourself of like, what's true, what's aligned, what's your heart feeling, what does your heart need, what does you need to express. And if it's painful to let it go, that's part of the process. Sometimes be kind, compassionate with yourself, have support systems in place. And it's It's okay to feel. There's a lot of feeling with Pisces. It can be very emotional. There might be a lot of sadness, a lot of pain during this transit over these 2 weeks of all the Pisces energy. I certainly felt more emotional than I have maybe ever in my life, just really feeling all this Pisces energy myself. And feeling leads to healing, and you can't heal what you can't feel. So feeling is great. And it's not so great in the moment sometimes. It can be very painful. But feeling means that you're alive. It means that things are moving and things will change. And in the tradition of Vipassana meditation, anicca, everything will change. Everything's impermanent. Pain is impermanent. Pleasure is impermanent. It's all just passing like the weather over the perspective of the clear sky of the mind, of the witnessing awareness, not even the mind, the witnessing awareness of the true self witnesses the mind like the weather. The mind is like the weather, always changing. And we're just observing this. And when we really tune into the heart and speak and connect from the heart, things are a lot simpler in a way. There's more emotion, there's more vulnerability, there may be more fear, more protection, all sorts of other stuff. But in a way, it's simpler. It gets us to the truth of the matter. And it can help to save a lot of time of just going back and forth in the mind where we're disconnected from the heart. So hopefully all this energy is an opportunity for you to awaken more of your heart, to clear the mind, to let some of this weather pass through the mind, to connect to your sense of spirituality or God or higher power or deeper meaning of life. So that can be infused into what you do in the world going forward, and hopefully bring out your gifts more. I think all of us have unique, special gifts, and the birth chart shows these things. And the more we're living in alignment with those gifts, sharing those gifts, attuned to those gifts, the more fulfilled we are. And it's not about a person, a place, a job, a title, a specific manifestation of those gifts, but it's about expressing those gifts. And the form will change. The relationship you're in will change and evolve, whether you're with the same person or not. The work you're in will change and evolve, whether you're in the same career or not. But what is true and connected and stays the same through all of that is your witnessing awareness, the true self, the Atman, observing this vessel, this body, this great, beautiful gift that we all get to be alive as humans, and to share and express our unique sort of thumbprint or fingerprint of expression in whatever way that shows up. And all of this stuff is about creating space for more of that in April, by letting go of what is not that, by connecting to the spiritual impulse and guidance that creates this true self, and connecting to the layers underneath, to your heart, to your true expression, so you can greater give your gifts in service to the world in a more authentic, true way, in your relationships, in your work, in all areas of life. So I hope you found this episode helpful. If you did, please leave an honest review on Apple Podcasts. Leave a comment on Spotify. Let me know what you found most helpful and interesting in this podcast. Are you feeling the shifts? Any big decisions going on for you? And if you want to go deeper into the elements of purpose and wealth creation, doing what you love in a soul, heart-aligned opportunity or business online, sharing your gifts, really utilizing this amazing energy of 2025, then that's what we'll be doing at Thrive Online, quietmindastrology.com/Thrive Online. You can RSVP for free, and we'll be live on April 7th at 7 p.m. Eastern. Talk all about living in your purpose, sharing your gifts with the world. Thanks for listening. I look forward to sharing more with you next time on the Quiet Mind Astrology Podcast.